Hi, good day. Welcome to CMS. Now we will continue talking about the quantity surveying in CMS. We'll go for the material takeoff for all the project civil items. We have here this material takeoff. We'll go for step 1, click to run, then step 2 for rendering. CMS telling you that step 1 is done, and go for step 2. We'll tell him okay, and go for step 2. He's telling CMS will start rendering now the material takeoff. To continue, please click OK and wait. Now CMS is starting to rendering the material takeoff. CMS completed material takeoff rendering. Okay. Now we have the material takeoff. All the quantities of the rebar for all the items with all diameters, the total quantity of the rebar. This margin, as we informed before, we already entered before as a 3%. If you need to change here in any item, you can change it here to give you the exact amount of the rebar you'll use for each item, if you need to change. Here is the concrete quantities. That's all the item of the concrete we have. CMS give us the quantities of the plain concrete which used in the PCC, the reinforcement concrete which used for all the items of the construction. That's the total quantity of the concrete. Plus CMS gave us the amount and the quantities of the shutters and timber work used in the concrete. Here there is one input you have to enter for CMS or to modify in CMS. You have to tell the CMS what is the consumption. If you are using a timber shutter, and this timber shutter you have a margin like 10% or 20% for each floor, that means each floor you have to compensate the quantity of the shutters by 10% according to your site requirement. You can also assume in the beginning 10 to 20% as a compensation. You have to add each floor according to this ratio and according to your project sequence, as we'll see later. CMS will give you the actual quantities of the timber, and also CMS will give you the actual consumption ratio for your timber. These items or this information, CMS will use it later in the cost estimation, as we'll see in the next videos related to the cost estimation. Because normally when you are purchase a material, maybe you will not use it totally for this project. CMS consider this. He will give you the actual consumption ratio for your materials. I'm talking about the timber shutters material, to give a proper calculation for your cost estimation. Accordingly, CMS will give you the approximate material of the shutter which is required to be purchased during the project execution. Also, CMS will give you the material takeoff related to the block work, all the types of the block which are required for the project. That's the area of the block, that's the quantities of the block for each type. Black sand which we'll use if you are going to use mix on-site mortar, and the washed sand also which we are using in the mix on-site mortar, and the cement which you are using when you are go for mix on-site mortar, plus the material of the ready mortar according to your input when you are inserting the data in the block work on the masonry work sheets, and the waters here per gallon which you require to be used during your construction of the block work. The same will be for the plaster work. CMS will give you the types of the plaster you will use, the areas, also the material as we informed now, and of course the finishing work, all the type of finishing, all the quantities of each type of finishing, the material which is required to execute these types of finishing, either this will flooring or skirting or walls or whatever. We need materials like black sand, washed sand, cement or ready mortar according to your input as we informed now, and the water also which is required for execute all these finishing items. The same for the border, the same for internal walls, and here is the total for the civil materials which is required, plus of course the finishing items or the finishing tiles which is required for execute all the finishings of the project. Till here we finished all the civil quantity surveying works by using CMS. we learned already how to insert all the data and what are the outputs we will get after this related to the civil works. Further to the material takeoff, CMS will give you a full bill of quantity.